Recorded live on the North Coast, Scotty does a show with guest Rich CIHLAR. Plus news, today's top 5 and more. And now, most likely to succeed, Scott Marion.
All right, what's up, everybody? What's happening? What it is? What's going down? What's the word on the street? Welcome to the show. I am your host. You can call me Coach. You can call me Scott. You can call me Coach Scott. No reason to call me Sir, unless, of course, you owe me money. Mr. Marion, if you're nasty. All right, welcome back, everybody. Real quick, shout out to the one and only Andrew Laura for coming on the show. Great guy, lifelong friend. And again, whenever I have somebody on that I can share those types of experiences with growing up, but also him to be as forthcoming and as honest and talk about the challenges he's going through now. The word inspiring gets thrown around pretty lightly, but that's absolutely the easiest way to describe that guy. Super great guy. And when he, quite frankly, I mean, it just kind of gives me chills just thinking about it. When he was here on the show and he brought out some prints of my work that I quite frankly had forgotten that I had given to him. It was nice to experience that again, because it's something that I preach a lot as a coach and also as an artist, but never underestimate the impact that you make when you inspire somebody. And he shared that with me, and for me to share that back with him, it was awesome. And great guy, and again, nothing but positive energy your way, and let's hope you keep going with a speedy recovery and keep fighting the good fight. But again, couldn't be any more, for a guy that really tried to do his best to downplay his impact on my life and other people's lives. That's bullshit. I was not letting you get away with it. Just had the fortune to be able to sit down and have dinner with you just an hour before we sat down here. Still not letting you get away with it. You're a great guy, and love having you on the show. So the only other update I have real quick, because I do have some great guests coming up here this week. The latest update on, which is actually something I'm going to talk about with my guest here tonight. My guest, who is a direct referral from Andrew, and also it's safe to say we're definitely on the same frequency as far as the creativity and energy. The next step that I'm proud to announce that I'm getting going on storyboarding and really getting outlining the first book of The Thirst. I do have the thread going on there with the people that are going to be doing the print acting, the print modeling, I guess, if you will. First venture into that for me, although I've toyed around it a little bit, to follow the footsteps of my idol, Alex Ross. So it's exciting, terrifying all at the same time, and can't wait to get it going. So that's what I have going on with that. I'm going to be updating you guys real quick, or real soon, on a lot of things happening with that. And of course, more great guests coming up too. So again, normally I'll spend my time really getting into a lot of things, updates and stuff, but I don't really have a lot to get into because I have a really cool, very special guest on here today. Again, the cool thing about having this medium as a way to not only share what I'm doing, and not only to have fun, but also to learn, progress, but have people on and meet people. And, you know, I'm not made no bones about it. A guy named Joe Rogan is somebody I try to emulate with my show, and he has people on all the time that he doesn't necessarily know, but people that he respects and people that he can learn from. But also sometimes he has people that are into the same things he's into. This is the case right here. So being able to sit across from somebody that has, for lack of a better term, similar passion. Medium may not be the same. The the outlet may not always be the same. The audience may not always be the same. But the energy and the passion, either it's there or it's not. And when I get around people that are, again, I've been very fortunate. I don't want to sound like a name dropping. We did it a little bit over dinner. I've been very fortunate to be able to been touched and work sometimes with some incredibly talented and also sometimes incredibly well-known people. But not always necessarily from the same mediums. And again, my experience was when I spent the time living in LA and all that, when I would meet people that, again, I'm not going to name drop, although I could. What impressed me about meeting some of those people was when they showed genuine interest in my art and my creativity and what I could contribute. And those were the people that impressed me the most, and they also made the biggest impact on me. So when I have the opportunity to sit across from somebody, yeah, nothing but state of the art here, folks. When I have the opportunity to sit across from somebody that has followed at least a somewhat similar path as far as influences and things, it's fun for me and it's inspiring. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in and my guest here. I want to make sure I get all this correct.
Yeah, hit me.
The art director at Baldwin Wallace University. That's
very generous. My official title is, they change it. It was office manager of the art department. Basically, I'm a jack of all trades,
Okay.
master of none. I run daily office duties. I help run the gallery. I mentor students. I teach indirectly. So I'm in there for everything. And I'm an alumni, so I'm really tied into the school and helping to produce our next generation of artists.
So a little bit of everything.
Everything,
and again, but Baldwin Wallace, correct?
Yes.
And again, a direct referral from the one and only Andrew Laura.
Andrew.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Rich CIHLAR. Make sure I pronounce that correctly.
You are 100%. Did Andrew tell you that? Because if you read it, you would have not gotten it correctly. My name is not phonetic, and I get chiller, chiler. I've gotten killer. It's spelled kind of funny, but it's CIHLAR. You're right.
Well, I have a bit of an inside track on that. There's a fighter, shout out to you, Super Steven CIHLAR, spelled exactly the same way.
No way.
He's a fighter. He's fought in the UFC. He just fought this past weekend in the ex-MMA, lost a tough fight. He's made it to, I believe, the second or third round of the Ultimate Fighter. He's out of Utah. I got to know him pretty well when I was out there coaching and training. To be fair, I was one of several coaches that he had. I was not one of an exclusive coach at that time, but my shocking with a lot of these gyms was the fact that I could teach people to fight, but I could also draw. So I'm meeting, at the time he was, I believe, just turned a pro, and I designed a walkout shirt for him, which kind of taking a Superboy type of thing. And I mean, it was an easy thing to go
Sure.
with. But when you look at a lot of amateur fighters, their walkout shirts leave a lot to be desired.
Oh yeah.
So I came in with a little bit of talent, and I mean, number one, make no mistake, these guys gave me respect because if I grabbed a hold of them, I could teach them something and they could learn. But the fact that I could draw something for them was my in. Famously, Jerry the King Lawler, everybody heard of him in WWE fame.
Oh, yeah.
He made his way into pro wrestling because when he was a teenager, he was a hell of a cartoonist. And he would draw all the pro wrestlers around Memphis, and he would hang out backstage and give them pictures and stuff.
That's funny.
So it's along the same path. So anyway, I did have an advantage of understanding how your name was pronounced. So, Steven CIHLAR, good dude, hell of a fighter, and he's fought in the UFC, PFL, and just fought in the ex-MMA. But I hope he keeps doing well. So I did have an advantage to understanding how to pronounce your name.
Fun fact: my middle name is Steven. So, and I got an uncle and grandfather named Steven. I have to look into him because I don't know too many other CIHLARs really outside of the general Cleveland area. And
I was going to ask that because
yeah.
that's not you're two people that I know.
I definitely don't know anyone in Utah. A few in California, but
He may have even been from there. I don't know originally where he was from, but again, I know two people, and
It's
I've
not a
got a lot of
common last
miles.
name, yeah.
I know, yeah.
Huh.
Cool.
yeah, very cool.
Well, maybe, hey, give a shout out. Who knows, man? You guys-
He's long lost cousin. I mean, the family is a family of baby boomers, and I'm the only child out of all the cousins. So there's cousins amongst cousins everywhere. So we could be related. Maybe I'll.
You ever done like any of the Ancestry or 23andMe or anything like that?
I have not. I've had
Okay.
some other family do it on the other side, my mom's side, but I am interested in it. But as we mentioned earlier, I've got so many projects on the table. It would be one more that would just consume a little bit from everything else I'm doing. You know.
That's always the challenge, though, is because
Yeah.
I get it. It's just one more, just
Yeah,
one
one-
more, no big deal, just one more, right?
Right.
You got time, right? Yeah, it's the hard part is saying no. But like you were saying, though, there's a power in that when
It
you
is.
say no.
I still don't like to say no, and a lot of times it's because it's friends. Friends will call and say, "Can you do me a
Oh,
favor?" And it's like I always know that that friend will come back around when I need a favor. But part of it is the challenge of saying no, but also I want to do it. You know, so
Yeah,
many great
right.
things have spawned out of things I didn't say no to. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it for free, or I'll do it for a discount, and then hope that that project turns into something more and more. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they're duds. But you know, that's kind of the life of an artist, figuring out what you want to do and making it your own and creating a path. So,
Exactly, and even that dud,
oh yeah.
you may have met somebody, or some piece of that is going to inspire whatever the next project is going to be, or a piece of the next project.
Any dud I could think of, or we would rehatch, I could tell you a positive nugget that came out of it and said, because of that, I met so and down the road, this happened, or I wouldn't have been able to do this having, you know, not done a project.
Well, when you have hardworking, creative people,
They're not all
inevitably-
hardworking.
Well,
Don't get those.
that's true.
Yeah, they're.
Very true. Actually, yeah.
I love artists, and I say it all the time. I have a gallery. I run exhibitions. I run a major event as far as an arts festival, and artists are flaky. It's just the breed. You know, they're creative.
I wish I could debate that.
But they're not always businessmen or women. They're artists. They make great work, but sometimes they can't discuss their work. They can't show up on time. They can't get their work ready. So it's the life of an artist. So sometimes you find people with both right and left brain, kind of business savvy on top of creative, and sometimes you don't. But yeah, artists
More
are
often than not, it's not. That's not the case. Would
right.
you say that?
I would say you're right. More often than not, because I'm always surprised when I meet artists, you know, when I was younger that I really thought were more professional, more put together, and then later on they'd be calling me and going, "Hey man, I want to talk to you about this idea, and I thought you were the man to talk to." And why are you calling me? I'm the little guy.
Right.
But they would see that business sense and kind of logistics. Like, I'm always solving problems, and problems that don't exist. I make up problems for exhibitions or ideas that I want to do, and then I solve them, and it's all in my head, and I do it quickly. And I'm always surprised that other people don't do that. Some do. Don't get me wrong.
Well,
but not everyone.
True, and that's where you talk about a balancing act between an artist for whatever medium that they're into, art, music, writing, any combination of. If they have somebody that has a good business savvy as a manager, partner, whatever, you can see it work tremendously, and then you could see it where somebody just gets completely just taken advantage. Like famously Elvis with the Colonel. I mean, famously was taken advantage of. But when the analogy I like to use is because I'm wired exactly like you. I'm a project guy. I've got a million projects going on from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. I don't stop. However, that's not always the most productive way to work. And I've learned, quite frankly, despite my stubbornness, I've learned that it's better to have a rudder steering the Titanic than not at all. Even if you have this most beautiful vessel that's out there, if it's going chaotically and you're not controlling it, who knows, what you're going to do more damage than good sometimes.
Oh, I agree. And I'm not saying that I've had this sense my whole life. You know, it's taken, 20 plus years out of school to realize,
Sure.
To sit on a project. I used to work on a project until it was done and call it a day. And now it's like, set it aside, visit it tomorrow, fresh look at it, and move forward that way. Yeah,
Do you find yourself working, like if you had, like when you work under the clock, you were saying a little bit before, like you have a deadline, this and that. Artists, I mean, this is what I'll say, I can be productive that way. But if I have freedom within reason, like some structure. But if I have freedom to, meaning if I say, okay, this has to be done by such and such time, I can work with a figurative gun to my head. But I prefer a little bit more freedom. Some artists work differently.
I need a deadline. I love when I have a deadline, next Friday by 5 o'clock is the deadline, have it done. Because it's a ticking time bomb in my head. You have to get it done or you're going to let someone down. When friends go, get to it whenever you can, you know what? That goes on the back shelf. And it's not intentional, but I forget about it because you've given me as much time. And I'll rethink that idea a million times until it's no longer an idea I want to deal with anymore. So yeah, give me a deadline. And even, some limitations. I think that when teachers give you can use any medium you want. Here's paint, here's drawing, here's collage. Sometimes even that's overwhelming. If you give me, you have a red crayon, a blue crayon, paper, and orange paint. Those are your limitations. So you know that you're already in a box and you have to solve with these problems. That helps too. In general, I prefer working on materials and canvas that are already started. They're in the garbage. They have marks on them. A white canvas or a white piece of paper is the most intimidating thing to me.
Really?
I
Wow.
cannot start usually on something like that and feel good. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll grab scrap wood, I'll intentionally mark them, burn them, paint them, throw in a pile, so that when I come around round two, there already decisions have been made for me that might present new ideas, new color palettes, new narratives. I prefer found objects. I love garbage.
Wow.
We mentioned earlier hoarding. Like some people will say what I have is hoarding, but I use my stuff. I don't collect newspapers just to have a pile of them in my room.
Right,
I
right.
collect things to collage. I collect broken skateboards to cut up and repurpose and put back together. To me, that is like, it's gold.
Sure.
It's half the work is done for me. The design, was done by a graphic designer. Colors were picked out, and I'm just disassembling and reassembling these for new life. And then maybe I'll drop an image on top of it. And I like that. You don't always get to share, everyone who was involved from that get-go of, a newspaper or a broken skateboard. But I like that group effort. I like continuing an idea that wasn't my own, and maybe that I have no idea what that idea even was. It just starts off as a shape or a color palette, and I'll take it from there. So much easier for me personally than a white canvas. And I know that a lot of my friends are the opposite. It can be a blank
Oh,
canvas.
I'm exact opposite. Yeah.
Well, okay.
And that's actually, I've talked about it here on the show. That's the way that I will pitch my projects to people. Sometimes I'll say, if you imagine it here, I can put it on paper for you. So I work opposite like that. But I had a buddy kind of describe my style as an analog Photoshop, which I think makes sense. Where I want to take bits and pieces of reality and recreate it and then put it together and assemble it in a way that doesn't seem like it's possible.
I can see that.
Almost
I
like
mean,
a hyper surrealistic look.
you're doing, a piece we were looking at earlier, it was a collage of great icons and iconic people in movies, and obviously it wasn't photoshopped, it was hand-drawn, but you still had to piece it together in your own mind, and it's incredibly complex. I can't do that. I can look at something like that and respect it and go, I'll do that on Photoshop. I'll find the images, then roster them, and then break them down and size them. That's why other artists are fascinating to me, because I want to do what you do and as other artists do.
Yeah, so you're blowing my mind with the fact that, like you said, you like to pick up somebody's and continue.
Yeah.
That's inspiring to me because I don't work that way.
The best thing, to me with some of those projects, and my buddy and I who have similar styles will, piece of sandpaper is like my best friend. If I have a finished piece and I just don't think it feels right, hit it with a sander or sandpaper, and you just take it down. And when you're doing that, you're getting like a fake or a faux barnwood look, especially when you're working on a wood surface. Canvas works as well, but you're taking paint down, and now you got these great rainbow effects coming through that you could have never done by hand, maybe not even imagined by hand. These happy accidents, and you go, oh, that's it. This looks great.
Oh, see, that's great. That's awesome.
And I have to work sloppy. And in that sense, I'm very meticulous, and I do stencils, and they're broken down great into a silkscreen process. And if I don't like it, intentionally I'll quote, mess it up, throw something on top of it, sand it, erase it. And I think that's where some of the charm comes in, because I am not that precision artist. I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And that's what makes the world go round in the art world. I can respect and collect the artist that I want to be or want to try to be, but I also know what I am. And in that same cycle or same position, my friends are looking at me in that way. How'd you do that? That's just what I do. And
That's one of my favorite questions, by the way.
what's that?
How'd you do that?
It might be your favorite. It's a cliche for me.
Well, I understand what's behind that.
As an artist, I can understand. As an artist, I would ask you that. But as a non-artist, you shouldn't ask an artist, how'd you do that? What made you think of that? I feel like those are questions that are softball questions that they don't really want the answer to. Not everybody, but most people are. You start explaining why you did something, and it's heartfelt. Why you did it. There's a direct passion why we do what we do. And you can't always explain it. And then the moment someone derails and goes, well, tell me about this. And you're like, I was still focusing on the why I created it. It really disrupts me. I think, I say any artist, musician, why'd you write this song? It's in us, and it comes out. It's second nature. It's what we do. I think there are better questions to ask. I think there's better critiques. I think there's better just general dialogues. And I've got a bunch of pet peeves, but I try to tell people that in a nice way when we're talking on how to, I wouldn't say approach an artist, but be a little bit more thoughtful in your questions. You don't ask an artist, hey, what's your favorite color? It's not a good question. We love all the colors, right? I mean, it's...
Well, we use them all,
well,
in
right.
theory, right.
But it's, sometimes those who don't really live in that world, they mean well, but their questioning is always kind of backhanded. Oh, you paint? My niece paints.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, your niece is 7. I appreciate it, but that's not the same level. Artists, you can't deny someone being an artist, right? Anyone can walk in this door and say, I'm an artist. But anyone who walks in the door can't say, I'm a doctor. So you can...
Right.
So as an artist, you have that freedom, which is great. It's also like the same idea of photographers today. Everyone's a photographer because we got a cell phone in our pocket. But is everyone a good photographer? Does everyone understand photography?
There's the illusion of you can take a shot, and you're right. And I use the digital art as an example because for years and years and years, I had many friends that were big into digital art, and I'm an analog artist, piece of paper and a pencil. That's my thing. And they would say up and down, Scott, with what you can do, learn this stuff. Number one, if for nothing else, you're going to cut out your time so much more. But I started learning, and I've been able to, now that I'm understanding the digital art a little bit, I'm able to pick apart, okay, oh wait, whoa, you're a shitty artist, but you're just covering it up. You know what I mean? Like I noticed that. I can see that where when I was first getting into it, I was like, oh wow. And then, case in point, I would sit down with people, you give them a piece of paper and a pencil, and they can't draw anything, but their digital art is incredible. In the DJ world, it was very similar. I would meet DJs that you give them 2 records and a turntable, and they have no idea what to do. But you give them a laptop, and they can sound like Beethoven.
Sure.
So, but if you understand and learn on 2 turntables and a mixer, and then move into that, man, the beautiful music you can create. And I feel I'm feeling like that in the digital realm. I'm rediscovering that, even like with the graphic novels. And now I'm able to not only take my rendering, but if you want it to be to feature in the book, I don't even need to have you here for the shoot. All I need is a shot of you. Mm-hmm. I have programs where I can take my drawing and put your face on my drawing and then re-render it by hand. Yep. Because that's how I do it. I don't need you like Alex Ross does it, famously like I've talked about. I don't need you in studio with lights where you have to take time away from your family and come and spend 2 hours to shoot. All I need is a headshot.
Right.
So it's very cool that I can cut that time away and optimize my ability to tell the story. But for people that don't have a true, not only, I don't want to say artistic talent, but what they haven't done is they haven't practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced, and then all of a sudden you give them the keys to the Ferrari when they've been driving for 5 days. It can be sometimes misrepresentative of somebody's true talent.
The word practice, the older I get, the more I use these old standards. Practice makes perfect. And I just remember talking with young artists, and they asked what I think is the wrong question during an open discussion. It was, how do I become famous? And that's not the question. The question is, how do I become successful?
Right.
Right. There's a difference between success and fame, and I think about that when you were just talking about digital arts. There's a lot of things.
Ask Van Gogh.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things
Van Gogh to Picasso.
you can do, because there's some tricks on a computer that allow you to hide those flaws easily. And the bottom line is practice, keep working, and just keep going. And it's not going to happen overnight, not in a week, not even a year. And you build up 20 years plus experience, and that's what makes your work so good when you're talking with people.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to, at least for me, it's hard to instill that in somebody that's younger, especially somebody that's 20. How do you, as somebody involved in a university, how do you instill that in somebody that's 20 years old sitting in front of you? Hey, guess what? It might be 10 years from now before something you do hits.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. When I was in college, I thought I knew everything.
Sure.
Don't tell me, I know. But you know what? I knew, but I didn't
It took
do.
you to college. I had it figured out in high school.
I didn't accept my own advice, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. It wasn't until years down the road when you start comparing, in a business sense, what are all these people doing right that I'm not? They're working hard. The bottom line is work. You're going to fail. Keep the drawings or whatever you're working on to look at, or photograph to look at a later time. And all you do is you figure out your tools, right? You figure out your materials. I used to work at a craft store. And
I go a step further to master your tools. Whatever tool you have, not figure it out, master it.
Whatever it
before you move
is.
on. I agree, but yeah.
Working at an art supply store, I learned about all the materials there that I didn't even use in my own medium because I worked there and I would read them. They allowed us to take them home and try them out. I mean, till this day, I still know like adhesives and glues so well. I have this really cringe face when people use hot glue on projects that I know hot glue is not going to hold, wood to metal. And I go, that thing's going to fall apart, and you want how much for it? Excuse me, hot glue is great for cardboard and crafts and things like that, but each medium and material has its purpose, and you have to know how to use it. Like, don't use a water-based glue if you don't want it to ripple. It's got water in it. Use rubber cement, spray adhesives. So I spent so much time indirectly working with customers and learning materials that you have to know that. And then when you start applying it, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of trial and error and money, which a lot of us don't have. But rewinding to what you originally asked, when I was 20, I thought I knew everything. And I would find shortcuts, I would create them. And looking back, my work was okay. In college, people might have said, wow, that was great. But it really was okay. I was trying to get by. Mm-hmm. I don't settle for that anymore. I really, personally, want to up myself every time.
Well,
So
college, as far as you talk about having a deadline and a date, and if it's that hard edged and there's no way to get around it, it's not always necessarily going to be your best work. I was guilty of that in college too. It was more about just meeting the deadline and getting it done, at least to the point, like Da Vinci said, no piece of art is ever finished, it's only abandoned. So it hits that point where, can I abandon it so I'm going to get a grade that I'm going to be able to progress?
And, speaking fairly, a lot of the projects you would do are tutorials, understanding color wheels, understanding value scales. Here's a still life. Can you reproduce this into a realistic look, and understanding light? So not all your projects, but initially you're doing a lot of tutorials. You're doing art worksheets, if you will, so that when you're ready to do a finished piece, you understand all of those aspects. So, and I mean, when I went to college, it wasn't strictly an art school. It was a liberal arts school. So I was taking biology and math and everything in between. So that piled up on art, you have deadlines everywhere. So you're always not giving 100% in one area because you're
I don't think
juggling.
it's possible.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Something's going to suffer a little bit when you put, or unless you want to just be C all the way across the board. But some students do. But then again, if you're an artist, it's not possible to be C all the way across the board because inspiration's going to jump in.
And realistically, 100% is the number. And you can't give 100% to anything because you wouldn't be eating, you wouldn't be working, you wouldn't be sleeping. That's all divided up. And I was co-teaching a class, and one of the great little tests or bits of information we gave the students were time management. You got this basically a paper-filled Excel sheet that said list all your classes, the times you eat lunch, the time you're sleeping, the time you go to work, and then add up all these hours. And by the time the students added that all up, it was more time than was in the week. What we didn't account for, or the students didn't account for, was a lot of that overlapped. And it was a worksheet to understand, to control your time and make better schedules and better decisions so that you could get all of this work done. And, I'm always preaching to the students, but when I was 24, when I was 18 to 21, I wanted to hang out with my friends.
Sure, of
I wanted
course.
to, do that. I had a part-time job. I get it. After I hit 25 is kind of where that whole I'm an adult really kicked in. I need to get life in order. And then, right
Well, it's
around
not
then.
a coincidence that happens for most people after 25. Because your brain isn't even fully formed until you're 25.
Right. I mean, again, it's all hindsight. So I know where those students are generally at, and I will guide all of them who are willing to work with me. And I've had a lot of interns. I've had a lot of mentorships. I've had a lot of student employees that, over the last 13 years, 12 years, that still keep in contact with me because there was an initial connection. I would tell them one thing, but I would also go home and do that thing in my own professional work. And I'd say, I'm running laps around you. You don't have a spouse. You don't have children. You don't have a job. I have all those, and I have 3 more jobs on top of it, and I'm still producing 5 times the artwork you are. So I'd always use it, lead by example, because I think that's very effective. Well, if he can do it, I can do it.
It's like that in any field.
Right.
As a coach, you know how many coaches I've seen that can't do a push-up?
I'm sure.
It's frustrating. I've been a student, and I've had somebody teach me before, whether it be art or combat or whatever, and was like, this person is teaching me, and that's something that I've used that in my students' face, or fighters that I've coached before. I'm like, I'm 40 and change, you're 20 and change. Why in the world is my warm up your workout?
Yeah.
Why? How in the world can you justify that to me? How can you? So again, it always boils down to work ethic. Can you keep up with me?
And it's also, there's, for teachers and leaders in general, there's a difference between a boss and a leader. And I've always tried to be the leader. I've never felt shame mopping a floor, sweeping a floor. It was probably 10 years ago, because right before my daughter was born, I got a part-time job at a pizza shop. And I love working in pizza shops. It's one of the places that if money and not having to give up your Friday and Saturday nights were an issue, I'd probably still do it because I enjoyed it.
Nice.
I got a job part-time just on the weekends while still working at the college. And within 2 weeks, the managers pulled me into the office and they're like, hey man, we need to talk to you. I'm like, oh, they're going to fire me. What I do. And I'm working with all these 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and I was 30. And they're like, hey, you want to be a manager? And I go, I got a real job. This is just summer vacation for me.
Yeah.
And I got a kid on the way. They're like, you want to be a manager just on the weekends when you're here? Sure. Because I never stood still. It's the same with art. If I'm bored at work, I'm not on my phone. I'm sweeping. You know what? There's flour over here. You know what? Cut something up. You got time to lean. You got time to clean. And I always imagine if this was my place, what I would expect. And that's how quickly I moved up in what people would call a peon job. I just did the job and I did it really well. Mm-hmm. So when it comes back to boss or leader, lead by example. And I couldn't believe within 2 weeks, I became a manager. And there were people there who worked there far longer than me. They were never offered that position because they were on their phones. They weren't cleaning up.
Right.
And I'm on a tangent, but I really believe in kind of leading the way and getting into the trenches, and in whatever field you're in, you will gain so much more respect from those who are working with you by working with them instead of pointing the finger and telling them what to do.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's in any, especially in any medium, a creative medium. There are, I mean, you hear about it on film sets that there are some directors out there that are off the chart genius, but nobody even wants to be in the same room with them.
I'm sure.
They will get incredible performances out of their actors, but their actors don't even want to be. They didn't want to see them. But then there are some that Spielberg is a great example. Find somebody that's going to shit on Spielberg in an interview. You're not going to find that. But he also produces incredible films. I'm sure he's not a perfect man, but if you can work from Tom Cruise to Harrison Ford and everywhere in between, his movies have a definite look and feel because you can say the thing about Jim Cameron, something like that too. They just have complete control, complete vision, but also the actors and the people that they work with, they 100% buy in to the vision that this director has. So there are some that can be a ball buster, figuratively cracking the whip, but man, I'll get a great performance out of you. I say it all the time as a coach. If somebody brought you to me and said, you're going to train Rich, if you hated my guts, but even if I took you to a world championship, you're going to resent me because you didn't choose to do it. Somebody put you there and forced you to do that day in and day out, drove you there. Even though you may be proud of the accomplishment, there's going to be a little part of you that's be like, yeah, screw that guy. But so when my experience has been, especially now that you have this project that I'm really getting into, which is exciting for me, I'm going to be taking some direction from some people like that. Unfortunate now that it's so new that people are 100% buying in and excited about my vision. But I know it's inevitable that if this thing's going to become successful, somebody that's cutting a check might want to change things or alter this. So that is a bit of a fear. But at this point, I don't want to sacrifice too much of that to get the project done.
It's hard because it's a real balance. It's kind of like movie Wayne's World, great show, and then they get bought out and they're being told what to do and how to do it. I know it's just a comedy, but it's hard.
We see it over and over in life. It's the way it goes.
It is, and you want to give in because you need that bump up, but being held back, that can really stunt creativity. But and too many cooks in the kitchen. There are a lot of people who every day someone's got a great idea for you. It's not a good idea for them. Hey, you know what you should do? No, I know what I'm going to do. I have my own path. Thank you for your advice. That's not what I want to do.
There's a handful of people.
More than a handful. Everybody's got.
Well, everybody has that opinion,
Yeah.
but there's a handful of people that I will listen to when they say, you know what you should do.
Sure, because you can respect them, or they've been there
Right.
and they have some real criticism.
Yeah, they've earned that.
And that's something we do at the university is I always ask freshmen when they're coming in, have you ever been in a critique room and critiqued your work? Initially it's the most intimidating thing you're gonna sit through. You're gonna think everyone in the room hates you. You should have done this. I would have done this. It would have been better if you did this. And you just think they're attacking you. But it's one thing I say all the time. It's a difference between a personal attack and a business attack. Not even an attack. That's a strong word.
Criticism.
It's just criticism.
Right.
We're there to make everyone better. So you discuss what can be done better. And as soon as you understand that it's not about you, they're not saying, hey, your hair looks funny, or I don't like the way you dress. It's the work. There are...
Well, to separate the artist from the work is very difficult.
And in real life, a lot of people
of
can't separate it. And this happens day in and day out. That's how arguments and fights happen. But, after you get through that first semester or two, my friends and I still do it. Hey man, can you check this out? And it does not hurt my feelings at all. If we work on a project, it'd be like, check this out, what works and what doesn't, and just cut right through the chase.
Sure.
And discuss it, work on it, go back and forth. It saves a lot of headache. I know it's all about business, and I know that we're working together to make the best product.
Right, and that's the end right there.
That's the end
It's
result.
The end result, you want it to be the best, and also as quick as possible, but the best as possible.
But two minds are better than one. My buddy Bob, who I work on stuff with, he and I, we riff on these ideas, and it's almost like we're the same person. It's great. I could take an idea. Hey, I was thinking about painting a bumblebee. I like that idea. And then he would say, I like it if the bee was like this because my abstract, we do collaborative art. My marks can come off it like this. Like, that's great. Should we do it in a natural color palette or should we, change it? And when we get done with the idea, we're both happy with the result, even though it's just a discussion. But it really feels good to work with someone who understands, it's so silly, hand motions. I use my hands all the time. And you can understand the vibe coming off someone and really get that gelling. And I think artists can really understand artists right away. And that doesn't mean you have to be visual, whether it's a performer or a musician, you can jive with someone so quickly.
It's a frequency.
It is a
sure.
frequency.
Yeah.
It's shop talk. You go,
Sure.
dude, I know what you're talking about. It's the behind the scenes. It's the magic that people can't explain, but the artists know exactly what they're talking about. And you get...
It's like the first time that John Paul Jones and Jimmy Plant got together.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, yeah. You know what I mean? You just know. You just feel that.
You do. And
Yeah.
it's a direct connection, and it makes this new entity, and it's just awesome. And that comes back to like the people asking, well, why'd you do that? It's like, you don't understand. It happened naturally. It was strong. It was super. You can't explain it. Enjoy it. And let's talk about it in a different way.
And on the same note, a challenge with that is if it's not working
Oh, that's difficult.
and you keep forcing it.
Yeah.
You can, just like we're saying, sometimes you can have a project, films, for example, or plays, or sometimes, or probably the ensemble piece is probably the best example of that. Like, you would see the film, oh, it looks great, and you find out that those guys hated each other the entire time. So there are times you can get past that for a creative effort, but man, it makes it so challenging.
It is. It's like a group project in high school or college, and you got 3 other people that you don't know. You can't get them.
They don't even want to be there.
They don't want to be there, and then you end up writing their paragraph for the report,
Right.
and there's just resentment at the end. But when you meet,
Even if you get an A, they're
Right.
pissed off.
I can work with artists that are not even in my style because they understand the level of time spent. A lot of the projects I do, you invest so much more time, energy, and money than you'll ever get back. But it's you have to do it right, because if you don't, people can find the flaws in anything. But when things are right and they're awesome, they just go, yeah, that worked. That was pretty good. They don't understand the time spent making it awesome, making it right. Whether that be a song, a painting, a film, filming and editing, I've been doing a lot lately. There, as a one-man operation, it's a lot of work. This. You know what I mean? Whether it comes to sound, to lighting, to cutting and editing, intros, outros, before you even get down to like the final product, it's been countless hours for a 10-minute shot, a 50-minute shot.
Oh, you're not kidding.
And
The last few years I've been diving into this. I'll do hours of prep work just to get intros and things like that ready that I had no idea were just going to But could I skip that corner? Sure. I won't allow myself to.
No. And the more you do it, the better you get. Again,
Yeah.
it's come back to practice.
Absolutely.
And I was never great in, I was a good student, but I was never great on all the practical exams and the standardized testing. I never did well with that. Problem solving, I was top of the chart. I could figure out puzzles and problems, and I still do that to this day, where I forget that people aren't thinking with me, and they present me with an idea, and within seconds it's like, brrr, that's not going to work. And I'll just shut it down, and they're like, you're a dick. And I go, no, I did the logistics in my head. Here are the 10 reasons why it won't work. I'm sorry I didn't explain them, but that's how my mind works. I've already been there. I've already tried that myself, or I know why it's going to be a hurdle. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying in some situations when people ask advice, it'll quickly go through my head, and I know that I'm really good at logistics, problem solving.
Well, you can see that train far down the tracks before it gets close.
Yeah,
too. That's one thing I've learned as I've gotten older as well.
It's like playing a game of chess, and 2 moves ago, I already know how the game ends.
Right.
And
when you were 24,
no.
Now you're 40, you can see that.
And
unfortunately, there's no quick way. You learn that through time and
there's
experience.
no quick way.
Yeah.
You have to do the work in order to be good at a lot of those things. And I will never say I'm great. There's always artists who are going to be better, even in the similar style that I work in. And it's like, that's fine. I'm working against myself. It's my only thing I want to do is whatever I did last, I want to do better this time or push it farther. And personally, that's been my mode. I do a lot of stencil artwork. I don't know how much you know about silk screening, but I got into
A little. On a scale of 1 to 5, probably a 2.
Okay.
That I know.
Essentially what I'm doing is pop art. I'm breaking down a photorealistic image in a few stencils and painting it with an acrylic-based paint called Montana. And there's great color palettes in there, more than just your standard, hardware store paint. And, when I was first starting off, I'd do like 5 layers. I wanted it to be a little bit more dimensional. And then down the road, I'm doing 12, 14, 18 layers.
Wow.
And it's just getting more and more complex. And my buddy and I found a niche to paint live. And we're able to paint these realistic paintings in an hour or two. And it's all because I've done the work before I got there. Drew these things out, cut them out. I show up and I'm painting in a silkscreen matter, which is a stencil, but I'm layering it so much that it looks like a photograph.
I've seen graffiti artists work very similar like that.
And you can.
That's
and
awesome.
For so long, spray paint, and street art were all this poo-poo, it's damaging. And then in the early 2000s, it flipped. All those artists went into...
You can get books now with photos of just like incredible graffiti art.
Yeah.
Like coffee books. It's awesome.
And it's all in the galleries now. And now you're paying top dollar for the work that used to be, artists paying for their own paint to paint a bridge or a building.
Look at Banksy. He started out as a punk, more or less.
Banksy is incredible for many reasons. And
I'm not be clear. I'm not shitting on Banksy by any means. But when you think about the way that guy started, he started out as a hooligan. A hooligan. Name one amazing artist that didn't at some point embrace being a hooligan.
Yeah, we're all rebels in our own
Sure.
way. We want to do things that we can't do, or we're told you can't do, or it's impossible to do. And you go, screw you, I'm going to do it. I do that all the time. I said to you earlier, so many people talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And usually, there have been a few exceptions. When I have an idea and I say, I'm going to make this happen, people go, yeah, that's great. When I was 24, I'm like, I'm going to open a gallery. Handful of friends are like, I'm in with you. I'll get a studio space. The day I signed the lease and I called those friends,
I'm out. Yeah.
I'm out, man.
Yeah, right.
Sorry. And you go, whatever. And, it was my own train and it was great. Or as silly as when I was 20, I'm like, I'm going to go on The Price is Right. Oh, have fun. I go, I'm going. Got my tickets. We went out, sat 3rd row behind contestants row, saw Bob Barker in person. It was great. It's like these little adventures that I can tell in stories now. And people are like, wait a minute. You went on The Price is Right? Yep. And, you tried out Family Feud? Yep. Live life. Have fun. Don't just say you're going to do it. Go try it. If you fail, it's still a funny story, right? But if you succeed, it's even a better story.
I couldn't agree more. You're talking to a guy that I was on the season 2 finale of How I Met Your Mother.
Really?
I was the official dance DJ of Adidas. When the guy that shout out to you, Chris Jones. Chris, you ever see the movie You Got Served? One of those dance-off movies.
I know the title. I'm not sure if I've seen it.
It was immortalized even on South Park. He was in that. I used to sell high-end jewelry to the rich and famous in Beverly Hills. I lived in the Caribbean. I competed as a professional mixed martial arts fighter at 43 years old. I've had gallery shows. I understand when I commercial fished in Alaska for a year. There are, look, there either people explore or they don't.
Right.
That's it. When people say they explore and then they get an opportunity to, and then they don't for whatever, I've lost track of how many people that said that let's do this stuff, and then they fall off for whatever reason. In my opinion, the biggest reason for that is fear. It's scary to leave the nest. I'm the type of person that now, through years of doing this, you could drop me off in damn near any country with no money, and I'll make my way out of there. I've done it. I'll be fine. Then there are people you can't take them one county over. You take them one county over without their cell phone, and they're going to be in the fetal position crying. And then there's everybody in between. I choose to adventure. I choose to explore.
That's the extrovert in you, because I feel the same way. Before my wife and I were married and we were just dating, I had no fear going to a wedding on her family side or friends, and I'd be like, she'd go talking to whoever. I go, I'll make friends.
Yeah,
and then 10 minutes later, she's like, how do you know all my cousins? We just started talking.
Right.
But, her and I are opposites. So in that same vein, she's an introvert, and that's somewhat terrifying to her to have to, talk to all these new people. But
well, even when Andrew was on the show, because he's done the DJ work, and I'm assuming you're probably in the same boat, we have a bit of a gift that I can walk out on stage with a microphone in front of complete thousands of strangers and
Give
be
it
just
to me.
fine.
Give
No
me the
problem.
mic.
No problemo. I figured you'd be the same way. Andrew's the same way too. But most people, like you're talking about, that terrifies them more than anything. Getting out in front of a group of people and have to talk, I love it. I enjoy it.
I don't know how it changed, but I was a mama's boy. I was glued to my mom's leg until I was, 14 or 15. I could be thirsty, hungry, walk into
I would have never guessed that.
a friend of the family, like, hey, would you like something to drink? I'd be thirsty, like, no, I'm fine. And I don't know why I was terrified, and then I think 15 maybe, it was actually Green Day's Basket Case video, and I'm like, that looks awesome. Hey, Mom and Dad, can I get an electric guitar? I had an acoustic one, but I didn't know how to play. And they're like, if you want that, you're going to buy it, because we're not buying you an electric guitar that's going to sit in the corner. Save my money. Hey, can I get lessons? If you want lessons, you're going to pay for them. We'll drive you, but we don't think you're going to stick with it. And then months later, I'm in a band. I'm singing on stage, playing guitar. And that little quiet boy was now the extrovert on stage, writing songs, watching my family cheer me on. It's weird how I flipped. And I don't know if that was probably always in me, or I just wasn't confident, and something happened one day, and I never looked back. So yeah, I'll take a microphone on stage and talk to a crowd, no problem.
I mean, I don't know. Even like here. Luckily we sat down for an hour and a half before we came over here. But sometimes I'll sit down and have a whole bunch of show notes. To be fair, I only really use those if I'm going to talk about a fight card that's coming up, like this person versus this person. I don't need notes to sit down and have a good conversation with somebody.
That's just stating some facts that you haven't digested yet.
Sure.
But yeah, the best interviews are this, discussing things.
Yeah.
I listen to talk radio, and I listen to people interview on TV, and some of my pet peeves even with that is people who don't listen. Even newscasters, they'll ask questions, but they don't have a follow-up question to the response that the person they just asked. It's not a discussion.
Well, they have talking points. They have things, especially if it's anything where there's a time constraint and there's advertisements. They have a certain list of things that they have to get off.
Sure, but the best interviews are those that are discussions.
Agreed.
They're more genuine.
Yeah.
They're more heartfelt. You're really getting into, the heart of things. And it's like, I wouldn't even have asked that question in a conversation or in an interview. But the more you talk, the deeper you get. You start spidering off into these great corners of each other's mind. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the best.
Well, even on the surface of a late night talk show, you want to talk about a sign of the times. Go watch Jimmy Kimmel interview anybody that's famous right now. You can go on any night, pick any 5 to 10 minute slot, It's talking points. It's this. It's this. Then watch Dick Cavett sit down and interview Roman Polanski a year after his wife was murdered. And you're going to see, although it's a late night talk show, and yes, there are advertisers, you're going to see two grown men having a conversation. It's not the same as like we're doing now or what Rogan does, but for the same time slot, same mentality, just the sign of the times, like, oh, they're not trying to sell me something. I'm learning about this guy. And I'll do that type of, I'll hop on YouTube and I'll look up, where it kind of crosses over between campy is the Johnny Carson. He would have some good conversations, but you look at some of the stuff that he had then and compare it to like Jimmy Fallon or something like that now, and it's a shill. It's completely a shill, and it's hard for me to watch.
I still watch Johnny Carson now.
Yeah.
There's like a tennis station called TV Plus, and they'll run old episodes, and
Nice.
you can always see him look off the corner, and he's reading a cue card, and yeah, he did have some discussion, but again, that was 30 years ago or more,
Yeah,
and
he
it was
retired in '92, so yeah, about 30. Yeah.
But still, he's reading a specific question. Those are things I pick up on, and maybe a lot of my, I say non-artist friends, don't pick up on that'll drive me nuts because I know what I feel is good as far as content, production and all that aside. I just like a good discussion. I like shop talk. I like when people have like-minded interests, or even if they don't, they just really ask genuine questions that open up a good conversation.
Well, they want to learn. They're just not looking for their chance to talk.
Right.
Right. I agree. Well, it's I listen to a lot of been listening to grew up listening to Coast to Coast AM, George Norrie, everything from that to say what you want. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. I used to listen to Stern. I would listen to all across the board. Rogan, Adam Carolla, Mark Maron. I mean, there's a lot of podcasters and talk show hosts that I've been listening to. Larry King, for example, actually got to know him very well when I worked in Beverly Hills. Used to come in anyway. And there's a very big distinction between having a talking point and having an agenda. And I mean, like some of these quote unquote interviewers, if they didn't have that cue card, they're going to have a very hard time having a conversation. And then there are some that if you give them a cue card, it's going to humble them or
Right.
or hinder them a little bit. The true pros, I think, I would say his name. Rogan would be. He's a guy who's done both. He's done the cue card stuff with news radio and some other things. Although it was vaguely unscripted, but the Fear Factor, he did that, and of course he does his UFC, and then he does his podcast. Not much of it is scripted, but he can do some of that.
I don't even mind that. When you're talking UFC and fights, and they're all going to have earpieces and giving stats from someone reading them in a back room,
Right.
or you're going to have bullet points to continue conversation when guys are fighting because you can't always announce them. Hey, they're running in a circle in the ring right now. They're still jumping around in a circle. That's not entertaining to hear. So you need to have some bullet points. I'm cool with all that, but I just think in general interviews, it's nice to give and take, and sometimes it's not. It's take commercial, and then it's done. I think you get more out of it in a situation like this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, when was the last time you ever heard anybody say, "Man, did you hear that Ellen interview? I learned so much about fill in the blank."
Yeah,
They serve a purpose. They
do.
sell. I'll give them credit. They do that. They clearly they get eyeballs.
Some of that is, I pick apart a lot of that. It's daytime TV, high volume, a lot of money involved, number one show, daytime show. I get it. I've always liked the show. But there are also things on the exact opposite that I even find that the local news stations now, news is not the appropriate word. They're becoming entertainment because the newscaster shouldn't give their opinion.
It's
Newscaster
funny.
shouldn't show you something that's entertainment unless it's actual news, and they shouldn't tell you about their dogs and their cats and their kids, unless it's labeled entertainment. You know, I love Jack Johnson, and he's got a song that says, who put the music on the news today? You know, you don't need the news to direct your opinion. It should be factual. It's this, that, and the other. And I get so frustrated watching
It's
local
funny
news.
you say that. I have a bit. I'm not going to be able to do it on this show,
Sure.
but I just started doing it. I'm going to hopefully have it for the show I do tomorrow. This bit, you know what it's called?
What's that?
The news.
Okay.
The news.
The news?
Where I'm going to be, I don't want to give too much away. I am going to take a step back and do certain things like read statistics. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to deliver the news, and then I'm going to have a subpart of the news, which is going to be called the news in their own words. That's it. So I'm going to read, here are the headlines, zero editorial at all. Zero. I'm not going to give you my opinion on anything. All I'm going to do is read facts, and then I'm going to show videos and or quotes of these people saying, and that's it. I'm going to sit there as stone-faced as possible for that exact, because I feel the same way. I've even joked about it on social media, like, I miss the news. I miss when I would turn it on and I would find out the Indians are 8 games out of first. And I would find out that such and such got hurt. And I would find out that the president spoke here, or the president was shot at, and the #1 movie was, and the #1 TV show is, and the nominations for this award is. That is the news. I don't want to know what you think about the person that's nominated. I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you. You're sitting there giving me information. If I wanted your opinion, you know what? I'll call you after the show, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. So I agree 100%. And problem is, when a person with said opinion is driven behind fill-in-the-blank network with unlimited resources and advertising and things behind it, let's put it this way. And talk about editing videos. It'd be very, very easy for me to edit this and make you look like a shithead.
I know.
Even though you've said nothing
I know.
out of line whatsoever. It'd be very easy for me to do that. Very easy. And very easy for you to do the same.
Right.
Now, does that make you a shithead? No.
No.
It makes me representing you as a shithead. Now, if I have listeners and fans out there that are going to do whatever I say, all of a sudden, Rich CIHLAR's a shithead. So, does that make it so? No. That's not a news story. That is my opinion that I'm going to drive people against you, usually because I have some type of agenda.
Sure.
So, when I, and this is not to go down a COVID denier or whatever route I get, I'm healthy, I've been vaccinated. I'm putting that out there. However, when I get around people that all they do is stare at the news all day and they are freaked out. They are freaking out. And then these people freak out and they tell people that I see day in and day out, and then they start freaking out, and then I try to be the voice of reason, and it turns into a bit of a shit show where, again, if you look at statistics and certain things, are there people at risk? Of course. Of course. Are there people that are at greater risk than some? Yes. Why don't we hear about that? Maybe because somebody has an agenda. So I agree 100%. And that's a bit that I'm going to be bringing back here pretty soon, where I'm just going to call it the news.
People love a train wreck, right? The news for a
Sure.
long time has just always been sad stories.
Well, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, and I thought about, even back during the housing crisis, it was always sad, people losing houses and jobs and so on. And it's like, why does the news ever share something positive? You could change a whole demographic within a radius with positive news or positive information. Let's just say it doesn't have to be news specific. And I understand that the train wrecks are more exciting. But it's just like,
Well, I watch videos of people getting into fights on airplanes all the time, but I would never do it.
right. It's, don't get me wrong, I like to watch too. But when it
Sure.
comes to the news, I mean, I speak on a local level, nothing major, but I always mathematically I break down each segment. I go, why was the weather 1/3 of the total news tonight? The weather, unless we are in a tornado or severe weather, which is say with the 5-day forecasts, or scroll it at the bottom. Sports too. Sports can be quick unless something major happened in anything. Sports are also 1/3 of the news, which leaves everything else to that last 1/3. And I'm not a producer. I've never worked in that industry, but as an artist and a creative mind and my logistics brain going, you could do this so much more efficiently and probably get better ratings by getting to the point, sharing something a little bit positive on top of the sadness that is where whatever it may be. I get more pet peeves. I turn into the cranky old man. Get off my grass.
I agree 100%, and I'm going to use that same message, but I'm going to go a little bit different angle with it. I'm going to go Coach Scott on you. This is something that I say to kids that I coach all the time, meaning if you're in a sport like wrestling, which is a hard sport.
I did it for over a year. I got my face smashed in, but yeah.
It is a tough sport. And if I was coaching you, and let's say you just lost the semifinals of consolations at the district tournament, where if you win, you're going to state. You lose, season's done. You want to see agony and ecstasy. Go watch that round. If you've never watched high school wrestling, go to the second day of a district tournament and watch that round. Kids win, they're going to state. Kids lose, they're done. So if I was coaching you, and let's say you lost a very close match, and I pulled you aside, and I was like, Rich, I keep telling you, stop with that single leg. You waste your time with it. Switch to a double. You blew it. But if that's okay, that's one way to deliver that message.
Mm-hmm.
But what if I said, you know what? I have good news. Remember, you just lost. I have good news, especially if you're an underclassman. You get in on the single leg every time. Every time. What we're going to work on is when you go elbow deep and shoulder in, you're going to score. So now, that 2-point loss, you're going to have a 4-point swing. I just delivered the same message to you, completely different.
Oh, I understand that.
And I told the kids that I coach, I'm like, look, my hands can take over a match and or take over a fight. My words can take over a country. So when, to your point, there's doom and gloom all day long on the news. And when you beat that drum all day of there's a target on your back, or the world's out to get you, or your president is this, or your leaders are this, or your neighbors are this, and they're telling you, and it's fear, 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 what do you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect? Whereas the flip side of that, if it went the other route, and hey, you know what? Focus on going elbow deep and score. It would be that impact times thousands of homes every single night. So I have to wonder.
The message is stronger, but the reach is probably less because.
Well, you're right. People want the car wreck.
We want the car wreck.
That's what we want, right?
What's it called? The MTV generation, when MTV came out and they were switching the scenes and videos every couple seconds compared to movies that were shot earlier and had much longer. I don't know the correct term. The shot would last longer in older movies. You ever watch like a movie from the 40s and the shot's on for like 20 minutes? You're going, how do I watch this?
CGI didn't. That was not. There was no way. You're right. It was all. Well, if you sit and watch, let's think of a thriller. Watch Escape from Alcatraz.
Okay.
The 1973-74 with Clint Eastwood.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing movie, but just compare that with Shawshank that came out 20 years later. And you're right, scenes are cut quicker. It's
it's the instant gratification for your brain. Something's happening. It's the same with our cell phones. That instant gratification. Someone texts me, gotta look. Someone texts me, I gotta look. Putting that towards the whole news discussion. People would get bored with it. I understand. The good news, who cares? Show me the train wreck. Unfortunately.
We're all look. How many Hostel movies have been made? I mean, like and I like I like a good horror movie every now and then too. But there's a reason why there's Hostel 6 that's out, and what we haven't seen is a sequel to. Let me think of a good one here, like Old Lady and the Tramp.
There's a Lady in the Tramp too.
Is there?
Yeah, it was. I think
You
it
have
went direct.
kids, though.
I know, that's why I know this. It went direct to video kind of thing. So.
Well,
yeah,
they've made sequels to
A lot.
Aladdin and Lion King had sequels.
I think there's a Lion King
there was
too.
the Aladdin, the Return of Jafar. And
Yeah, you're right.
Look, I understand make a buck, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I can point the finger at a lot of this, and then sometimes I've done it myself. So I get it. But again, sometimes you just need to rant and get that, out of your system. But
It's a cleansing, man. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. That's why I have a view right over here. He's got to have some therapy. If you're going to work and be creative, that's great. If you don't have a therapeutic outlet, then you're. And by the way, make no mistake, my art is therapeutic outlet too. But sometimes I just want to ram my head in a wall.
sure, I just my daughter's going to be 10, and whenever she asks to play on the computer or a video game, I say, either she's got to practice her piano, or I go say, go do something productive for a half hour, an hour. Well, what is that? Be productive. Do something that enhances your day, enhances your knowledge. That's not the computer or not TV. Go do something. And she typically will go draw or make an art project.
Nice.
But yeah, for those listening or watching, we're talking art. So sometimes it's always like, well, I'm not an artist. I don't make art, so I don't understand. Be productive. I recently, the older I get, I keep adding hobbies on to my list. I just got a beehive started a couple months ago.
Oh, nice.
And although I've read for the last 3 years about what bees do, how they work, what they need, I am no expert. But I wanted to learn hands-on. I can watch all the videos till the cows come home, and until you actually have a hive of 10,000 buzzing little stinger bees in front of you, you don't know how they're actually going to react. And yeah, I just love. The older I get, the more I love learning. And
Absolutely.
In
yeah.
high school, I didn't want to read to save my life. Don't give me a book. I learned by experience and problem solving, and now it's all I want to do is learn. So that's why
Some would say that could be the meaning of life, is to keep learning.
yeah.
I've heard that from people, and I've had a hard time arguing that.
It could be. I've said that similar thing. Once you've perfected it, you can die. You don't need to keep going. You've done whatever it is you do so well. You're done.
It's actually Ozzy Osbourne had one of my favorite quotes about it. He's still alive. We had a quote one time when he was like, the funny thing about life is as soon as you figure it out, you die. I'm like, yeah, you know what? For some reason, it would have to be Ozzy that would nail that. But once again, I haven't heard anything better than that. And I haven't died yet, so maybe I haven't figured it all out. But I think every day I go through a combination of learning, understanding more, but then realizing every day I don't know shit.
Well, that's very true.
I know more and less every single day, if that makes any sense at all.
When you start really thinking on the grand scale of things, you're like, I'm a speck of sand and
A little worm on a big hook.
oh yeah, I love going into. Recently, went into a planetarium, and as soon as they start getting farther and farther and farther away from Earth, just in our own galaxy, this is not even outside.
That's
you go,
crazy.
What am I? Who am I? Do I even need to be sitting here with you right now?
Right.
Is this important? Like, you look at history, and go, it is and it's not. In the same sentence, this is important because I believe in this kind of creative outlet we have right now. At the same time,
In the grand scheme of
it
things.
doesn't matter at all.
Right. It's
So-
sobering when you think about that, but it's true.
It's a backhand to the face. You're like, what?
Well, my one buddy, Brandon, shout out to you, had one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard in my entire life. And it goes like this. Nobody's ever convinced me that any of this is even happening anyway.
Yeah. Is it real life, or are you in a straitjacket banging your head against the wall in a rubber room right now?
I don't know.
Right? Either one's still good.
Prove it.
Prove it.
And when I was just like, yeah, you're right. Nobody's proven to me that any of this is happening at all. Maybe this is a giant simulation. Maybe we're just the lint underneath somebody's fingernail and some alternative reality. Or maybe this really is as good as it gets. I don't know.
Did
I don't
you
know.
did you ever get into or watch the Black Mirror series on Netflix, or are you aware of it?
I'm aware of it. I've been recommended that series several times, but I've not watched much of it.
They're so far out and yet so close to home. It's scary when we think about technology, and even when you go backwards and you think of 1984 and Big Brother, you go, that's happening right now. It's just mind blowing. I don't want to say entertainment. It is entertainment as far as Black Mirror, but good series. I hope they put some more out soon.
All right, check that out. You're not you're several people have,
Yeah.
have recommended that one to me.
It's a good one.
Especially, well, there are some series that and some movies that I won't recommend to people, even though I know they're good. If that makes any sense.
No, it doesn't. Why wouldn't you recommend? One of the first questions I ask my buddies when I see them, I'm like, hey, I think I've watched all the good stuff on
Because
Netflix
there's some
and Prime.
things that I can see that I have friends and people that I care about that can't handle it.
Oh, I'll just suggest things whether they like it or not, and ask.
I
for
did that for a
suggestions.
long time. I did that for a long time, and then I was disappointed
Oh.
over and over.
I guess I don't ask everyone. I have some specific friends because I like some really, I'd say messed up. Like I'm a big fan of American Horror Story. I would not suggest that to my parents. It's just some of the,
Well, that's fair.
it's just very twisted. I don't want them to think that's me. I just liked that it was a new horror TV show, a new horror movie. It's not the same Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers kind of boogeyman setup.
In the book, the series called The Thirst that I'm writing, it's pretty dark. I mean, I take these supernatural characters. Number one, there's a series of books by White Wolf that was called Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse, where it's a role-playing game, but they do a very good job of explaining how these creatures can exist in today's world, quote unquote. These are characters that are really screwed up, and our lead character is a mess, and it's demented and dark and bloody. But ironically, I've already been outlining to write a romantic comedy next. So the point is, although there's a part of me that wants to tell that story, and I've created characters that hopefully I can continue telling these stories, or somebody can from here on out, and we'll see where it goes. But there are other things that I like to write as well. But I don't want to get pigeonholed into that. I mean, that's not a real fear at this point. But I also don't want, man, you're that sick guy that wrote that scene. Like, yeah, I did write that. But the good news is being able to draw it. I have at least at this point, it'd be a little. I mean, make no mistake, I'd love to see it turn into something live, a feature at some point. But that's the advantage I have of being able to totally create a universe on papers, and I can turn you into whatever I want, and then you can go home to your family and not have to be that person.
You say twisted or dark, and that may be true, but I think it's getting harder and harder for people to be really creative. And I hate using buzzwords like creative or unique, but you think about traditional Hollywood, it's a lot of the same stuff redone, good movies redone again into a contemporary time.
There's patterns and things for sure.
And I understand money funds these things that are millions of dollars. But I think that's why I like, even looking back and watching some of the old 80s movies as an adult, my kids go, these aren't great. Like, they're great in my mind, like The Goonies. Like, it's a great, fun story, but when you watch it, you go, there are so many flaws in this. How do kids find, a treasure that the whole town has not found in years, and it just happened to be in this cave that's attached to a well, so you look at that, and then you move farther and farther forward into the 90s, and you get into things like Silence of the Lambs. You go, this is twisted. And you find out that that is real news. You hear these things on the news of psychopaths and serial killers, and we don't know any of them personally. I hope we don't. And then, but the movie is so much more intense because it's so much more real than movies in the past. So as we move forward, some of these real ideas and even expanded ideas that never been done before. I guess that's getting harder, but I think those are more exciting.
Well, I think a lot of the real kind of pushing the envelope. I mean, you'll see it with horror films, but I think a lot of it is with documentaries now. If you want to see something really, watch, if you haven't seen it, the Netflix 3 or 4 episode series on the Night Stalker.
I've in my queue. I haven't watched it yet.
It is so well done, and it's told from the perspective of the guys that are trying to catch him. And there's so much to that guy's story that people don't know. I'll give this a little bit of little bit of it away. He was they caught him, and they were charging him with all of these murders. He was also, while this was happening, see, what made him so dangerous is he was first not called the Night Stalker. He was called the Walk-In Killer. He was into a lot of different stimulants. He would take whatever, and he would just wait for a door to be unlocked. And he didn't care if you were young, old, white, black, male, female, didn't care.
There's no pattern.
Didn't care. Young kids didn't care. And he would kill, rape, murder, do whatever. And he also was into a history of kidnapping and doing horrible things to kids. And this one cop was telling after they caught him, and they knew that they were going to kill him. And they started bringing these kids in to call him out of a lineup. And after like the second or third one, they just said, the testimony from the kids, they just said, we're not going to do this. We're going to drop the charges with the kids. It was too much. It was too traumatic for the kids because they knew they were going to kill him.
Sure.
So here's maybe a dozen cases of kidnapping and rape and molestation on children that they just threw away.
They want to relive it for the kids.
They just threw it away.
Yeah. I'll have to watch
Whereas
that.
if you or I just did that, that's a special in and of itself.
Oh yeah.
But this guy was just. I always kind of knew and heard about him because I think it was right around 89. I think it was 89. I think was when he went on his spree, if I remember right. So it was right around freshman high school. So I remember hearing about that. But it wasn't until I watched that special, it was just like, man, like really. But you're right. That is a true story. And for me, ironically, it's funny you bring that up because most of the inspiration for the writings that I'm doing for this book come from real serial killers. I'll listen to their own words, their testimony, their story, and things that they would do to people. And combine that with supernatural. I mean, that's the art of telling the stories. I want it to be, of course, it's a fantastic story, but I want there to be a tie into these characters because, man, there has to be at least it has to be somewhat believable. You have to at least suspend disbelief to a degree, and that's been a bit of a challenge, but it's also been fun too.
Yeah, that's a tricky road. I've never written anything like that. I've never written really at all, but suspending disbelief, but also keeping on a line of realistic. I always used to make fun of my friends for having discussions about zombie apocalypses. Like, you guys are idiots. This is never going to happen. And then you start watching a few series and go, well, if it does happen, how are we going to survive? Yeah. And I just laugh. I mean, right now thinking, well, maybe it could happen. Maybe it won't, but I should be prepared to some degree on how to survive if, everything comes crashing down.
Everybody should have at least some plan. You talk to, and I'm not a prepper or any means, but I know some people who are, and they all say the same thing, which they all call it, which is you need an oh shit bag.
I've heard that.
If something happens, like we went through on 9/11, where you wake up and holy shit, but volume up to 10.
Oh yeah.
What do we do? Where do we go? What do you do if all of a sudden we don't have electricity? Cell phones don't work anymore. There's no gas. There's no food. What do you do? So there is, I mean, in learning how to hunt, fish, make a fire, and all that stuff is great. But the immediate thing is going to take over. How do I take care of my family? So the ability, or the fact that most people aren't really prepared for anything like that. Is 28 days later probably going to happen tomorrow? I don't think so.
I hope not.
I don't think so. But then again, I don't live near Wuhan, so I don't know what's going on over there. But I also don't have a giant building across the street that says Coronavirus Lab Institute. So I don't know. I'm an optimistic realist. I believe most people want to do good, but I recognize evil and bullshit for what they are.
Yeah, you can find that out pretty quickly when push comes to shove. You know, who's willing to help and who's really willing to step forward first, you know, in the time of need.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's what Andrew said when he was on the show too. You know, there's a lot of people that when you get news like that, you find out real quick who's going to be there and who's not.
Right.
And I've been fortunate to never get the news that he has had, but I've had bad news before and had people that I thought were going to be there and aren't. And I'm sure you have too. Everybody has. But the flip side of that, I think is a good way to kind of go out on, because it's easy to keep going. But I believe in the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid.
I say that every day. It's so funny.
It's so true. And in the last year and a half, couple of years, there have been people that have been lifelong, quote unquote, friends of mine that I've had to turn my back on. Does that make me a bad person? Some might say that. I would say that just because you've been friends with somebody for so long doesn't mean that it should continue. You know, if there was a rusty nail sticking out there in the floor, and every day I kept stepping on it, Scott, what are you doing? No, I'll just walk around it tomorrow. And I keep stepping on it. It's like, well, wait a minute here. Maybe if my argument is because it's always been there, that's not the good argument. So, where when you get news like that and you find out that there are going to be people that you want to have there and they're not, the flip side is sometimes people that you didn't expect. Not only will they be there, they will really show up and they'll inspire and possibly save your life, maybe directly or indirectly. But artist to artist, creator to creator, sometimes it leads to, who knows? You know, new projects, it's I don't think I'll ever be done. Oh, okay, this project's done. I'll never hit that point. And that's back to that adventurous spirit, you know, of keeping out there and exploring and trying new things. And like you said, get busy living, you know, and get after it. And when people that do go after things and go after their dream and want to create and inspire and entertain and follow their passion or any of those things, it can alienate from people that aren't doing that. So what I always take comfort in is when I have to do that or turn my back or deal with a harsh reality. It's like, oh, wait a minute. That's right. I talked about it when Andrew was here. I had a lifelong friend that was poking fun at me for doing this show. And if you're going to shit on somebody for creating some artwork, then that tells a lot about that person. And then of course I was angry at first, and then I'm like, wait a minute. He's not mad at me. He's mad at him. Because it's not like I'm doing something that's impossible. It's not like I'm doing something that he can't do. I'm doing something that he won't do. It's the same thing when you see people that they confess to getting fit, and then they don't, and then they shit on somebody who is fit. It's shame.
Sure. Sure.
So I take comfort in, when I have to do that, or turn my back, or deal with a harsh reality. It's like, oh, wait a minute. That's right. I talked about it when Andrew was here. I had a lifelong friend that was poking fun at me for doing this show. And if you're going to shit on somebody for creating some artwork, then that tells a lot about that person. And then of course I was angry at first, and then I'm like, wait a minute. He's not mad at me. He's mad at him. Because it's not like I'm doing something that's impossible. It's not like I'm doing something that he can't do. I'm doing something that he won't do. It's the same thing when you see people that want they confess to getting fit, and then they don't, and then they shit on somebody who is fit. It's shame. So I take comfort in knowing that if I keep working as hard as I can and keep working as well as I can and doing as much as I can for other people, directly and indirectly, then if anybody's going to shit on that, then I know it's not me. And I take comfort in that. So that's where, in case in point, I get to have a friend sit across from me I haven't talked to him forever and introduce me to somebody else. And so you can focus on, yeah, this is shitty or this is bad or this is whatever. But you know what? This is cool.
Yeah.
I look at it that way.
I feel the same way. Was it the Eagles? You can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself. And if you want to just have a good day, a good week, good life, make yourself happy. Others will support you, others will not, and you can't really worry about other people. They have their own lives and their own problems, and I'm totally with you on that. And sometimes you sit down, like we're doing now, great conversation, great stories, a lot of commonality. Before a couple hours ago, we never even met, and now we've just spoke for over an hour and a half on so many things in common.
Yeah, over an hour and a half on this, plus another hour and a half before we came over here. And we could easily double that if we really wanted to. But that's, what that means? You just have to come back.
I'll come back, because I feel like we haven't gotten into half the fun stuff. We just tip of the iceberg here.
It's true. Well, and again, make no mistake, and I'm going to take your advice on getting the frame for the 80s piece, and of course all your feedback is awesome, and I'd like to get your feedback on the thirst and some things I have going on with that.
Anytime.
Too, so that'd be awesome.
I love when people can accept, feedback and criticism and honest back and forth, because all it's going to do is make the projects better. And in a sense that, anytime I offer up information, doesn't mean I'm right. It's a point of view, you may not have seen, or someone hasn't seen, because you're so close to the project. Some of those things you've been working on for years or months, so.
Well,
anytime.
you're right. Sometimes you're staring at it right here.
Literally, right in the eye for months.
And it takes somebody from 10 feet away to be like, hey, is that the, and just, holy shit. It's just, there are a lot of times that, and they're not just in art, but you'll see that sometimes in complex math problems.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see just incredible mathematicians that are struggling, and then here comes this punk kid or whatever. He was in the
Good Will Hunting?
in the movie, but you'll see it not necessarily a punk kid, but all it takes is some mathematician to take a look at it from a different view one time and say, "Hey, move that X over to the Y." So, that's and I appreciate that. But there was a time that I would have said that I was open to feedback, and I really wasn't.
Sure, everyone says that. They want the information they want to hear, not all of the information. We've all been there, and sometimes you got to leave your ego at the door and just say, let's work on this.
Sure. Well, it's to use the fighting analogy, when you get your arm raised, it's a great feeling. You don't always get your arm raised though, and you have to work every bit as hard for that same contest. Now, can you put your head down and get into that fetal position and cry and never fight again? Sure. Or learn, adapt, improvise, overcome, and then go back out and do it better next time. Mm-hmm. And there's I use this word a lot. There's a freedom in that. Like, yeah, you know what? You may beat me today. You might beat me yesterday. You got to beat me today. And if you beat me today, I'm going to be in your face tomorrow. And to take that same competitive edge, I make no mistake, although I'm much more open to feedback, I am no less competitive now than when I was younger and I was still competing and stuff. I just choose a different way. Like I told you about the logo for the Dukes thing, and people were kind of giving me a hard time about it. So I went roundabout and did it the ultimate passive aggressive, and just decided to change logos for the entire county and put it into a video. And you know what? It came out pretty good. So in the end, that's always my argument, which is, look, you have kids. I don't think I'm ever going to have them. But I do have my art, and it will outlive me. And I know the day is going to come when I'm in the ground. Spoiler alert for anybody out there. Hopefully it's later, much, much later than sooner. But when that happens, my work will outlive me. So there are people out there, and make no mistake, I can give you a list, including the aforementioned person I was doing. No problem tell you I'm a shit. But if they tell you my work is shit, I know it's not true. It took me a long time to really know that. Is my work, some of my work better than others? Yeah, of course. Is there some that I can do a better job on? Sure. But I know overall, right now, that if I put my name on something, I stand by it. So, I'd say, oh, you can say what you want about me, mess with that. And that's, the word, I take comfort and power in that because, in theory, that work could outlive several generations. Who knows?
It could be centuries.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could,
Especially
it could
now
be.
with the digital age.
Yeah.
It could live on infinitely.
Yeah. It's and I've embraced that too. Not only just because obviously being an analog artist, having physical work that I can write and draw and sign and hang up, and original works and prints and things. But with films and videos, absolutely, it can live on through eternity, basically. So it's that's where I get my power and take my pride from. It's like, you know what? I can tell you right now, there are people out there that have a lot more money, a lot more resources, a lot more fame than me. But I bet I can probably draw as good as they can, maybe a little bit better. I can probably maybe even throw a punch better than they can too. So does that make them better than me and me better than them? No. All I care about is being better than who I was yesterday.
Yeah.
That's all I give a damn about.
It comes down to your own happiness.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're right. And I mean, Andrew said the same thing. Live your life, keep exploring, keep trying, and keep doing. And I can't imagine, that's always a good note to go out on there. Before we go, do you have anything that you want to plug? Anything that you want to say? Anything that you want to give it a shout out? And I can superimpose and put whatever we want up on here.
I've got 1,000,001 things going on all the time, so I don't want to sit here for another half hour listing
Go for it.
my next endeavors. But the best way to follow me is go to richcilar.com. And its last name is CIHLAR. And follow the blog, follow shows, follow my gallery, and you'll just see what I'm up to. Even though my website is always about my art, it often, with the blog, it kind of discusses how I got to where I was, where I'm going, and then even on my social media through that same site, you're going to find the quirkier side of me. I've got what I call dinosaurs in my background. I kind of live in a lot that's got a creek behind me, so there are heron and snakes and groundhogs, and every day a new creature infiltrates my yard and eats my flowers, and so you can follow me on posting some of those goofy pictures. But as serious as I am within art, I'm also like to have a good time and laugh about everything in between. So
otherwise, what's the point?
What's the point? I
Agreed. I love doing good work, but I love laughing and putting my feet up, of course.
It's fun being on top, but you know what? I'd rather be with my friends sitting around a fire talking stories and cracking jokes and just enjoying, my friends, my family. It's the older me coming out. It's like, we don't have to go run around all these bars, Let's just hang out and be cool.
Well, like we were saying, it's like the Chris Rock line. You don't really want to be the old guy at the club. He's not really that old, just a little too old to be at the club. You don't want to be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
No, because even when I was in my 20s and you'd see that guy, you'd be like, oh, man.
I still think I'm 20, but I know I'm not. The mindset there, but the body is aging like a fine wine.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't get any better. Now, we can, I say it all the time, the only opponent that's undefeated is Father Time. Mm-hmm. We can slow him down. We ain't going to beat him, no matter what. That's just the way it goes. So, there's always a bit of a challenge, especially as a coach, when I get around somebody that's in their 40s or turning into their 40s. And they realize, man, like you said, I feel like I'm 20 anymore. When you're 20 years old, you can come off the couch and go run a 5K.
I don't feel like I'm 20. My mind thinks I'm 20. I mean, I play softball twice a week, and it's like, ooh, ah. And, I had an injury about 15 years ago with an Achilles tendon, and yeah, you're not that young anymore. When I say I mean me.
No, you're saying it to me too. I heard it. Don't worry.
It's funny because your parents told you, you wait, one day you'll be my age, and well, here I am, my parents' age when they said it.
It seemed like that was a million years ago.
I know, right?
It was just one click of the clock, and here we are. I do the same thing. Like, I get around some of the teenagers, I'll coach and high school kids and stuff, and I'll be like, "You're going to hear this a million times.
Listen to me, right. I have the answers."
Right, you're going to want to call bullshit on this, but I kid you not. You guys are going to wake up one day, and you're going to be looking at a bunch of teenagers and saying, "What the hell happened?"
Yep.
And I heard that time and time again when I was young. I didn't believe it, and yet here we are.
And in 20 years, we'll laugh at them. Told you so.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is, 20 years from now, we're going to lock back at this and say, these are the good old days.
Right.
I don't know how to take that.
Yeah.
And on that note, so anything else that you want to add? Any other plugs? Anything?
No, that's great, man. I appreciate your time and your invitation to have me out. Appreciate it, Scott.
Yeah, it's been great. And again, everybody out there, stay tuned. I got more great guests coming up. Again, everybody out there that's supporting everything I'm doing, you guys are great. Your feedback is I can't put into words. I'm having a hard time. I'm still relatively sober. Your feedback and support is just it's invaluable to me, and that's really what keeps me going. Other than that, stay tuned. I got some great stuff coming up, and thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh no, hit the candles. Ow, Todd.
Wow, you gonna be okay?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.